All right, this is the walkthrough for drawing 4A for my classes, so B12 4A. If we click on the Canvas link, we'll see some instructions. We're going to start off with a brand new clean and shiny file. It might sound kind of boneheaded, but you want to save right now. You want to save early, because if you save early, then later on, if something bad happens, you're not going to lose the file, hopefully. You can recover the file. So save right away. This is drawing B12 4A dash your initials. Right, and then just check out your screen. Make sure everything is set up correctly. For example, do you have a little tiny baby command line like this? If you do, you need to enlarge it. Pull it up. Right? Make sure there's at least 3 or 4 lines of text that you can read so we can work with some of these commands. On our status bar, do you have all the tools open? Let's see. Click on the hamburger, go down the list. If there's a check mark in front of all the tools, you know that they are all visible. Are there things turned on that you don't know how to use? If there are, turn them off. And then think about, what do you plan on using? Are you going to use the grid? Maybe. Are you going to use snap mode? Definitely not. Snap mode is for babies, right? It's for like training wheels. And 20-year-olds don't use training wheels. Are you going to use ortho? Well, why not use polar? Because if ortho is good, polar is better. Object snap tracking? Probably. How about object snaps? Definitely. And then which object snaps are you going to be using, right? So pick ones that seem appropriate to whatever you're working on. And then we're working with lines that have line weight, so turn on the line weight display. Anything else that's turned on, if you're not sure what it does, turn it off. Okay, now we're ready to go. We need to go to the Layer Property Manager. We're going to create several layers. Center. Text. Object lines. Okay, and then we're going to assign their colors. We'll assign the line types. And then we'll assign the line weights. So drawing is all set up. I'll make the object line layer current. Lock and load. Here we go. The figure I'm working with is basically a rectangle with the corners clipped off. It's got center lines. Every time I see center lines tell me these are the building blocks for the drawing. So I'm going to go in and I'm going to start working with the center lines. And I'm going to turn off my grid because sometimes the grid just drives me crazy. Make sure my center lines are set to the center 2. That's better. I'll do another line vertically, lining it up. Okay, so I'm going to use the offset tool. The figure is 8.5 left to right. So I'm going to set the distance for my offset to 4.25, 4.25 to the left, 4.25 to the right. And I see that my center lines were a little too short, but you know what? That's fine. You can go in and stretch them when you're done, when you have a better idea of how big the object's going to be. That's what those grips are for. And you can even grab the whole mess and move it up into quadrant 1, which is the positive area out here, positive X and positive Y, to the top and right of the origin. All right, so from the left to the right, it should now be 8.5. And there's nothing wrong with checking yourself to make sure. 8.5. It's 5 from the top to the bottom. So I will offset 2.5, half of 5, half of 5 up, half of 5 down. Okay, and these edges here are going to make the outline of my object. I'm going to do a fillet. I'm going to keep the radius 0 because I want this to basically clean the corners up for me. Right, and I'm going to do a fillet and maybe set for multiple fillets. So I'll get that corner and this corner, and I can go to the next fillet without having to restart the command. All right, so there is the basic shape we're working with a rectangle. I'm going to do a little bit more offsetting now. I'm going to make that square in the middle, 3 inches by 3 inches. So half of 3 is 1.5. I'll go 1.5 to the left, 1.5 to the right, 1.5 up, 1.5 down, and then there is our square in the middle. I'll use the rectangle tool to create it. My next item is a little slot cut to the right of the square and then one to the left of the square. It is 1 inch away, so I will do an offset of 1 inch to the left, 1 inch to the right. And then the slot is 3/4 of an inch wide. So I will offset 3/4. We can type in fractions, common fractions if you prefer to decimal fractions. Okay, so this is more or less the area that slot happens in. It's 1 inch away and 3/4 wide. And the slot is 2 inches tall, top to bottom. So I will offset 1 inch up and 1 inch down. And then right here is the space where that slot's going to be. So I'll go back in and make a rectangle with some object lines here and here. All right. My last step is going to be, let's knock the corners off of this thing. So the angle I want to draw it is 30 degrees. I already set my polar to that. The distance from the bottom corner is 2 1/4 over. So there's a few ways to do this. You could hover over the corner if you have object snap tracking turned on, point to the right and type in 2.25. Right, that's 2 1/4, and that's exactly how far away from the corner you started. And now I'll just go up at 30 degrees and I can stop there. I can go and track that point up to here and then go down at 30 degrees. That's nice. If you wanted to, you could also offset 2 1/4, 2.25. Right, and that tells you where to begin your 30-degree line going down. Bam. And bam. Now, of course, both ways work. Both ways are awesome. Another option would be to use the chamfer tool. If we take a look at what we're drawing, we see the chamfer is 30 degrees and a distance of 2 1/4. So normally we've been doing a distance 1 and a distance 2, and you could, I guess, calculate distance 2 by using a little Pythagorean theorem here. But I don't want you to do that. Let's just use the numbers we have, 2 1/4 and 30 degrees. So we'll click on chamfer, and we're going to use an angle instead of 2 distances. It says, what's the distance for the line? 2.25. And what's the angle? 30. Okay, so 2.25 along this line and then come down at 30. Click. There we go. And then we'll start it again and it will remember the settings from the last time, and that is another way to take care of clipping the corners off at that bevel. Once you know the left side is good, you could use the mirror function to make the right side. All right, so the center lines are not only the skeleton, they gave me a bunch of points to attach to as I was laying the drawing out. If I was drawing this with a pencil and tools by hand, this is how I lay it out. So we do a similar setup in AutoCAD. I don't need all these center lines. I'll get rid of the unnecessary ones. We do need the one going vertically and horizontally through the figure because it is symmetrical left to right and top to bottom. I'll do a little trimming to clean up these corners. And my figure is effectively done. Now the center lines are kind of gigantically long. I'm going to do this. I'm going to make a little 1/4 inch offset. And I'm going to go in and do some trimming to make those center lines just a little bit shorter. And I'll get rid of these lines I'm trimming against. Alright, and that's great because I've got the outline nice and heavy. I've got the center line passing through. Everything looks good. The only thing that we're missing is we need a rectangle on the border layer. So we'll go to the rectangle, we'll go to the border. We'll say start at 0, 0 and go up to point 10, 7.75 or 7.5. Okay, it looks like my objects fall outside the border. Well, it's no biggie, right? Because we can move them. So you want to move them so that they are somewhere in the center, more or less, of the drawing area. If you are having an OCD moment and you want to get it exactly, perfectly, precisely in the center, you could grab it from here and then find the geometric center of the border and then plop, there you go, right in the center. All right, the last step is to put your name on there. So go to the text layer. We're going to add some text down here in the bottom right corner, and the text should be in all caps, and the text is your name. And if your name is on 2 lines, just grab the little diamond and pull it so that it's all in 1 line. All right, so that is our walkthrough for drawing 4A.